Hey y'all, I'm Caitlin. I'm a software engineer here at New Relic on the Unified API team. We're the team that's responsible for creating and maintaining NerdGraph. Now, NerdGraph is the first best place to query New Relic data. It's New Relic's API platform, it's a GraphQL API, and the NerdGraph API Explorer is the graphical UI for executing things like queries. But what does that all mean, and how do you access and use that data as a New Relic developer? To understand the power and process of consuming data through NerdGraph, we need to understand a bit about GraphQL itself. As you can see on graphql.org, GraphQL is a query language specification created by Facebook. It allows you to write a query that defines precise data you're interested in, similar to SQL or NERQL. However, instead of querying a single table or event, you're querying into the abstract graph of related data, in this case, New Relic data, which is actually spread out across many New Relic microservices. To get started with Graphical and New Relic NerdGraph API Explorer, which is our graphical IDE for working directly with NerdGraph, we can visit api.newrelic.com/graphical and create a simple query where we can return a user's name. And that query looks like this. As you can see from this JSON-looking structure in the query editor section of the page, right here, we're asking for the name field, which is nested within the user field, the user that is associated with the API key used in the request. And user is in turn nested within the actor field, or the top-level entry into all data that is scoped to the current user's access level. These fields, along with all of the other fields you'll find over here in the Query Builder section of Graphical, make up the NerdGraph schema. A GraphQL schema is where all the available types for querying are exposed and defines what data can be accessed in the GraphQL API. For a more in-depth look into the NerdGraph schema, you can expand this Docs tab. In here, we'll find descriptions of all of the fields and types that we find in the NerdGraph schema. So back to our query. If we run our query by pressing the play button, we'll see the data populate in the response section of the Explorer. So whereas with REST calls, you might need to issue multiple API calls to multiple different services to get all the information you're interested in, with GraphQL, you make one request to the GraphQL server. It's the GraphQL server's job to go out to the different services that hold different pieces of data and then send back one response to you, the end user. You might also notice here in the response data that we're only getting back the information we asked for, the username. With GraphQL, there's no under or overfetching data. You declare the precise information you expect back, and that's what you get. So what if you wanted more data? Well, you just go ahead and ask for it. So let's say we also wanted the user email, but that's not it. Let's also ask for the account name. If we run this query, we'll see that we get back the account name, the user email, along with the username. If we wanted to create, update, or delete data, we would use a mutation. So let's look at what a mutation might look like by creating a mutation to add a tag to one of our entities. So as you can see here, these are required fields in the mutation. So let's make sure we supply an entity GUID. And it looks like tags need a key and values. So let's provide those arguments. And let's also ask for any errors that we encounter back. Let's ask for the message and the type. Let's execute this mutation. And the response returned from running this mutation would give us insight into whether or not the tag was created successfully and what errors we encountered, if any. In this case, I didn't provide a valid entity GUID, so my mutation returned an error response with a message, invalid entity GUID, as expected. It's important to note that GraphQL, unlike REST, can return partial responses. For example, if I were to attempt to add tags to multiple entities in one mutation request, some of the tag mutations could succeed and some could fail. Failed requests will result in a null response like this one. And the errors key here will be populated in the response body with more details. So now we know how to explore all the New Relic data available to us in the NerdGraph API Explorer using the Query Builder and the Documentation tab. And we know how to create queries and mutations to get this data in the UI. But how do we as developers transfer this to our code? To capture code-ready queries and mutations, simply select the Tools dropdown here in the NerdGraph API Explorer. Selecting Copy as curl will copy a curl statement with the in-scope query to your clipboard. You can paste this code snippet into the terminal of your choice, or you can use it to populate an HTTP request in your code. It looks something like this. If instead you're working with the New Relic CLI, you can click the Copy as New Relic CLI to generate a command line ready query or mutation. And that looks like this. There you have it. Now you're just a few clicks away from the whole graph of New Relic data. See if you can create some more complex queries or mutations by clicking around in the Query Builder. Can you create a query to grab the count of all of your reporting entities? Hint, check out the entity search field. Happy querying!